So, yes, it is a very sad morning because those who have been waging sinful war on Islam for so many years, the media, all the newspapers, radios, television, governments around the world, international organizations waging sinful war on Islam on behalf, of course, of the oppressor state of Israel. All these years, the chickens are coming home to roost now, and now the slaughter has begun. If the slaughter in Gaza was not enough, if the slaughter in other parts of the world was not enough, now the jasads are coming out into the open, the woodwork, the worms are coming out of the woodwork, and people who are now programmed to go and commit these horrific acts of murder. This is what has just happened in New Zealand. And we should not be surprised if it does not provoke other such acts on Muslims around the world. But once we are at the receiving end, once we continue to remain as the wretched of the earth, it validates our claim to truth. But what is far more dangerous is that the same people who programmed this Jasad to go and attack and kill 50 people in New Zealand are the same people who will now train who they call their own boys of Dajjal, the people of ISIS and otherwise, who have Muslim names and who are paid US dollars, to now go and attack some Christian church or Jewish synagogue and kill 150 so that they can now put the blame on Islam. Look at how these Muslims have responded. This is the danger. This is the danger. So our Christian brothers and sisters, the Jewish brothers and sisters who stand up against the oppressor, we suggest to you to take precautions to protect your places of worship so that someone does not come with a mask on his face and with Allahu Akbar blazoned on the back of his clothing and so on to put the blame on Islam, to come and commit a reciprocal act of horrific terrorism and killing large numbers of Christians and Jews. For those Jews who are our enemies because they are oppressors, we also do not wish for you that you should have to suffer these kinds of attacks, because we Muslims, we don't wage war this ugly way. No, we don't wage war this deceptive way. When we stand up to fight, we stand up openly with our faces open, so there's nothing, no covering over our face to conceal who we are. We don't fight from the dark like the Israeli Mossad. No. Now then, we have to declare, we have to recognize on this very sad morning, and these words of mine I know are going to go around very far in the world, because I am perhaps the only scholar today who has been championing the cause of Constantinople. And because of the attack on New Zealand, and it was, I believe, programmed like that it should bring Constantinople to the front page, to center stage in the world. I believe that they wanted to kill far more than 50. I believe their plan was to kill maybe about 500, so that Constantinople will come out quickly and violently out to the center stage. And I believe that the purpose of these attacks, rather one of the purpose of the attacks on the two masajid in New Zealand, in South Island. I visited New Zealand once, but I remained only in North Island. I did not go to South Island, so I've never visited Christchurch. But I believe that they wanted to kill about 500 people or more in order to bring Constantinople to center stage. Why? Why? Let me explain. The purpose of the attack in New Zealand, or rather one of the main purposes of the attack in New Zealand, was precisely to sabotage this coming together of Muslims and Christians and binding us together with a future that is connected with Constantinople. The Quran has spoken on the subject of Constantinople, and unfortunately no one has taught the subject. And so there is widespread ignorance, particularly in Turkey. And I cannot blame our people for being ignorant when no one has taught them. They've been brainwashed for 600 years. And as we seek to fend off this act of sabotage in New Zealand, the act of sabotage which is meant to divide us, to provoke the Turkish Muslims now into trying to get Hagia Sophia restored as a masjid. That's what's going to happen now. And we will know the credentials. We will know the Islamic credentials of the Turkish government if they allow this supreme cathedral of the Orthodox Christians, which should never have been converted into a masjid. It was shameful, it was disgraceful, it was manifestly sinful, it was in conflict with Allah's command in the Quran to have taken that cathedral and converted it into a masjid 600 years ago. Mustafa Kemal took it out from being a masjid and made it into a museum. And now, as a result of what happened in New Zealand, now you'll see all the drums being beaten to take Hagia Sophia and restore it as a masjid in order to drive a nail deep down into the hearts of the Orthodox Christian world, including Russia, and to sabotage the efforts we've been making all these years. One man alone doing it, only me. I can't get the other scholars to come and join me. I have been one solitary voice crying out, but it was not been crying in the wilderness, because the Orthodox Christian world has responded so wonderfully. These words of mine, I hope, will reach you wherever you are in Greece. I hope I can visit Athens sometime this year, inshallah, for the first time. These words of mine may reach you in Russia. I was there in Moscow a few years ago. These words of mine may reach you in Belgrade. I love Belgrade, and Belgrade loves me, yes. That there is a conquest of Constantinople which is coming after the Great War, after the Great War. And when that conquest of Constantinople takes place, as prophesied by Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, when that conquest of Constantinople takes place, this cathedral of Hagia Sophia will be returned to you. That's right, it is your cathedral. And you will remove the minarets because this is your cathedral, it's not a masjid. The minarets are a symbol of a masjid. And this is not a masjid, so they should not have any minarets. This is an Orthodox Christian cathedral, and we recognize it forever as an Orthodox Christian cathedral, and we will give our lives to ensure that this is returned to you and you have it again once more as an Orthodox Christian cathedral. But this will only happen when the conquest of Constantinople takes place after the Great War. And that Great War seems to be around the corner. And so what we are looking forward to is what happens after the nuclear war. And our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, He has prophesied as no one else has prophesied in history. Only a prophet can do that. The University of the West Indies and their scholars and their strategic analysts and so on, their political scientists, they can't do it. No. Only a prophet could do it. And he has prophesied that the next event to take place after the Great War would be the conquest of Constantinople. And my book, Constantinople in the Quran, which has just been written and which we're going to launch in London on April the 27th, do please come and attend that program. Do please come. We want to welcome you. We want to share that moment with you. That book explains why the conquest of Constantinople is so important, because that conquest will result in the return of Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world, and that is what he did not want. He killed 50 people in New Zealand. He did that in New Zealand. Not him, sorry, those who programmed him to do it. They killed 50 people. They were hoping to kill 500 in order to prevent Hagia Sophia being returned to the Christians. That's what they were doing. Sabotage. But they planned their plans, and Allah plans his plans. We are not saying that Constantinople, the city, has to be conquered and returned to the Christians. Who said that rubbish? Not Imran Hussein, no. A Muslim army will conquer Constantinople, not a Christian army, not Russia. No, 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 stop this garbage. Stop saying things about me I never said. Our Prophet said, لَتَفْتَحَنَّ الْقُنْسْتَنْتِنِيَّةِ لَتَفْتَحَنَّ you Muslims, you will conquer Constantinople. وَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ آمِرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. Which scholar of Islam today is quoting this hadith? None. That is not to say that the scholars of Islam are not doing important work. No, but they're not touching these subjects. And let me lay off the scholars of Islam, because I've talked enough and they're not listening to me. No, they're not listening to me. So let us move on. What can I do? When the conquest of Constantinople takes place, we'll return Hagia Sophia to you. It is still too early for us to analyze properly and comprehensively what they programmed him to do in New Zealand, those who programmed that killer. But clearly, at the top of the list is to sabotage the coming together of the Orthodox Christian world and the world of Islam in friendship, reconciliation, friendship and alliance. That is the first implication of the attack in New Zealand. There are other implications as well, but it is still too early. Later on, maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, I can return to this subject with a more comprehensive analysis. But at this time, this is number one on the subject. The number two, which I mentioned earlier, is that our Christian brothers and sisters, our Jewish brothers and sisters ought to protect their houses of worship now. Because the same people who program that killer have other killers who will have Allahu Akbar written on their backs as they come with masks on their faces to try to replicate what was done in what was done in New Zealand to kill 500 Christians or 500 Jews. We Muslims don't fight wars this nasty way. No, 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 no. When we have to fight wars, it has to be a just war. It has to be a war against an oppressor. That's right. And when we fight against an oppressor, we will never fight if he is seeking peace. As the Orthodox Christian Patriarch of Constantinople, was seeking peace rather than war when the Ottoman army attacked him. And 7,000 or 9,000 Orthodox Christians defended Constantinople until the last man against an army of 200,000. They were seeking peace. They did not want war. And the Quran, the religion of Islam, says if the enemy wants peace, you are prohibited from fighting. But the Ottomans didn't care for Islam. This is true. If I am wrong, come on and prove me wrong. Don't simply criticize me because you are blind in your loyalty to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire did many things which were good. And if I were to say one thing that the Ottoman Empire was good at, they would say, look at you, why do you criticize the Ottoman? These schoolboys, they have no sense in their head. They have lost the capacity to think. And yet they are so obstinate in the continuous criticism of me because I am proclaiming the truth. That's right. We ask you to protect your houses of worship now. Put security people in place, because those same satanic people who programmed him to go and attack the masjid in New Zealand, those same satanic people are going to program other people to come attack Christian churches and synagogues, and the attackers will have Allahu Akbar written on their clothing, but their faces will be covered with masks so they could put the blame on Islam. This is as much as I can speak today, because I have other things to speak about today. So this is enough today for New Zealand.